It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap, and this is my favorite part of the show, where I guess what the background is for Tim. And Tim, I'm going to guess, in light of the Chicago riots the past week when the police barely showed up, that you're going to go nostalgia on me and show 1968 Democratic Convention, Michigan and Belleville, right in front of the Hilton Hotel. The cops beating the crap out of the yippies. That's what I think when police really responded. Tim, let's
you are wrong on that. It's actually a rapid unscheduled disassembly.
Oh, this is the SpaceX that just blew up, right? Right.
No, it was a rapid unscheduled disassembly. That's what they called it.
That just happened, right?
That just happened this morning. Yep.
Oh, okay. And glad I'm up on that. There was nobody on board there, right? Right.
That we know of.
Oh, okay. Are you sure?
Yeah, I still wonder. He sent that car into space, if you remember, and they said, "Oh yeah, it was just a mannequin sitting there in the driver's seat."
Oh, okay. All right.
It's like, yeah. Either that, or it could be the guy that disagreed with him and then disappeared shortly thereafter.
Yeah, one of his Twitter critics or something. Oh, that's so. It reminds me of the punchline of a very bad joke that I don't really want to tell, but in light of the Bud Light controversy, there was the Krista McAuliffe line. I said a Bud Light, back in, but it's still too soon for that joke. So, but turning to the Chicago riots, well, it wasn't a riot. It was an insurrection.
Some kids out for a mostly peaceful shopping trip.
Right. And of course, the signal moment of it is this couple from North Carolina, a mixed race couple, getting beaten up at 129 North Wabash.
Do you think that had anything to do with the
who knows? What are the motives? We never find out the motives on these things unless it's a white supremacist who does something. But
they took their shoes,
and phone,
and watches and money, but the shoes, that seems third world. I mean, he had Yeezys. So, I guess I could understand that they would want the Yeezys, but she was just wearing sandals. So it's who wants someone's stinky flip-flops?
It seems a little gratuitous to me, but so how these things are going now, that soon the real victims are the perpetrators. That's as with the transgender murder. So
that's what happens. That's what happens when you close their Walmarts.
Yeah, well,
got to shop somewhere.
Which they were pilfering anyway. So there was this guy on Twitter that somehow he appeared on my timeline, named Dave Stieber, who I believe is a Chicago public school teacher, and so is his wife, if I'm not mistaken. Which is a great boondoggle. But anyway, he was tweeting, the trope is about midnight basketball. Okay. But everybody's saying, oh yeah, more, that's what we need again. That's the sarcastic comment that, I think, everybody's making. But he says in the last decade, the Chicago Park District has removed 12 of 16 basketball courts from neighborhoods that have doubled and tripled in value, further marginalizing communities facing displacement. So it really is about midnight basketball.
That always struck me as a little bit racist. I mean, there was that old joke that you can't tell anymore about how to stop an armed robbery, and you hand the guy a basketball.
Right. Yeah, you hate to when you live up to the stereotypes or live down to them. So I'm just
one of my favorite
Yeah.
articles. One of my favorite articles about midnight basketball was somebody he wrote. He was a restaurant owner, and he says, "What's wrong with midnight dishwashing?"
Right.
It's like it's all right for kids to hang out on the basketball court at all hours of the morning, but if if he was in a restaurant washing dishes till midnight, it
And
would be illegal.
the motion that you do with the washing of the dishes, it's kind of Karate Kid like. You know, scrub on, scrub off, and then it might help with your free throws. I don't know. But so I'm just wondering, and now we're showing the video. I guess this is the 129. Is this the 129 North Wabash video? Yeah. But how far south can you safely go in the loop on a Saturday night? I'm wondering, have they taken over that's Millennium? It was basically Millennium Park, like around Washington Street. But
Well, they said they were
am
coming
I
out
safe going to the Four Seasons? That's what I want to know for brunch on Sunday. That's what I want to know.
They said they were coming out of Nordstrom's, that they had Nordstrom's bags, the couple.
Well, but they weren't attacked at Nordstrom's, right? Because that's like 400 North, I think.
Isn't there a Nordstrom's rack a little bit further south?
Yeah, Nordstrom's rack, where incidentally, I got my clothes when I worked for Channel 5 because the general manager there didn't like that I was wearing the same sport coat, same blue sports jacket every day like I wore at Channel 32. They caught me doing that. So they made me go shopping, and I went to Nordstrom's rack. But yeah, I'm just wondering about how far north it's can you go on because once they take over the Wrigley building, I'm going to want to take it out of my kind of town, Chicago, is with Sinatra, because the Wrigley building, I got, mugged at. It doesn't work. And but that is pretty far north there. And what, I wouldn't want them to desecrate the Jack Brickhouse or Irv Kupchinich. Yeah.
I saw a man, he danced on a bus.
So yeah, it's a little so then either this guy Dave Stever or somebody else says, imagine if every big corporation and any sentence that starts out imagine, just cue John Lennon right there and Utopia. Imagine if every big corporation was forced to fund 200 youth jobs that are year round, and the city had creative, engaging spaces for youth in the summer. We'd have a safer, healthier, less violent, and more equitable Chicago. And I'm thinking, you know what? With artificial intelligence, the way it's going, pretty soon AI is going to create dads who will actually stay in the home with the family. And so all will be well. I mean, because that's what you really need is the dad at home. And an artificial one, if you got the goggles, whatever these kids nowadays wear in order to live in the alternate reality.
There's a Black Mirror kind of like that. Is that a woman's husband died, and so what she did, she went to this company and they took like all his social media posts and emails from his entire life and put them all together and reconstructed her husband essentially, and it was essentially a robot that would tell the same jokes and everything to the kids. Well,
it's Stepford wives. I mean, it's Stepford husbands, Stepford dads. I think we've got the technical capacity to do that. I mean, in spite of the setback today on the launching pad, I would think that we're going to be we're almost there.
Well, who knows? Maybe artificial intelligence had something to do with it. It's like you've been very mean to me, Elon.
Right, there you go. So Lou Canellis, my former intern on the radio and now the Channel 32 sports reporter, he goes, in response to all this, it's only going to get worse. And I responded to Lou, be careful here, because I don't want to have to be called back to do the sports on Channel 32 because I still think Cliff Corral plays for the Blackhawks. And what is it? These kids nowadays think that they could say anything on social media. Stick to your sports script there. For your benefit. I sympathize with with what you're saying. But anyway,
maybe he was talking about Chicago sports teams.
Well, yeah, it's hard to get worse than it is right now. I know. So So this the aforementioned Dave Stieber, the teacher, said, if you now find yourself talking about Chicago's youth, and I look forward to seeing the history of you advocating for them to have more resources, supports, and investments over the years. And I was thinking, hey, how about, Mr. Stieber, if you took a pay cut, for the kids? I know you already do so much, but you can do more. Remember, you have white privilege. And by the way, it's even mandated by the state to teach the kids that you have white privilege. I mean, no wonder they're writing. They think they deserve it. And I'm actually, there's an Illinois education thing. It's called informed action inquiry. And this is state mandate. The Illinois students must, quote, analyze existing structures, systems, and methodologies to determine what types of interventions or informed action will lead to increased equity, inclusion, and community and civic good. So, I mean, this is what we're feeding them.
Yeah.
So
who needs math, huh?
Well, yeah, math is, by its nature,
math is hard. Somebody actually pointed out to me that private schools, that the teachers are paid a lot less, but they never have to buy any supplies because the schools are completely well stocked.
Yeah.
So what's that telling you?
Yeah, no, it tells me something. In Chicago, nearly 90,000 students have left the district since 2010, and nearly 1/3 of CPS schools are half full. Well, that's a positive way of looking at it, not half empty. So spending is way up, performance is way down. It reminds me years ago when I was co-hosting the show on WLS, and we had Karen Lewis, the head of the teachers union, on, and I said, look, I actually said this to her. I can't believe it. I said, look, just import some Asian students. That's all. It'll raise everything. I don't think we ever had her on again after that. But yeah, those are the days when I had chutzpah. All right. Well, we've taken care of this entire subject, I believe, and I'm sure we'll be able to reprise everything that we said once it turns warm again in the city of Chicago. Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Let me tell you a story about a beer rooted in the heart of America, found in a community where a handshake is a sure contract, brewed for those who found opportunity in challenge and hope in tomorrow. Raised by generations, willing to sip, share, risk, remember.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. It's good to see Anheuser Busch back in our good graces, Tim. There's nothing heartwarming.
That's not the direction I would have gone.
What would you have done?
Well, Bud Light made its bones being humor ads, and one of the most popular ones was the one where it was the Royal Court, the Dilly Dilly.
Yeah.
Ads.
Oh, Dilly Dilly! I forgot all about Dilly Dilly,
which ran until to the point of annoyance.
But
here's what I would do: is the king comes into the court and all the men are like in Monty Python drag.
Sure.
He goes, "Who made thou dressest such?" they point to
it was marketing.
For marketing, they point to like a snowflake in the cowering in the corner, and I shall deal with this. Bring out the executioner. And then Kid Rock comes out with like a huge axe.
Yeah. No, I love the idea. The thing is, they're blaming this marketing person, whatever, for the Mulvaney thing. But there was a story in National Review. This didn't spontaneously generate. Bud Light has when LGBT was getting going in the 1990s, Bud Light was the brand. They tried to associate themselves with pride parades and LGBT. So this has been going on for quite a while, and this was just like the natural extension of what they've been doing. And
then, ever since those damn Europeans bought the brand, I mean, let's admit it. That's what
Anheuser Busch is
damn Belgians.
Yeah, does like Unilever own everything? Ben and Jerry's, Bud Light. Well, because it's funny because this guy is quoted as saying, Yeah, people are saying, I'm going to stop drinking Bud Light and start drinking Corona. Well, guess what? We own Corona. So, I mean, they own everything. They probably do own Ben and Jerry's as well. Did you see, speaking of, funny bits, did you see the SNL Bud Light parody where they had a pedophile on the can and then they were trying to sell that?
I missed
yeah,
that.
you missed it because it didn't happen. That's
why. I thought for a minute, oh my gosh, did Saturday Night Live actually get funny?
No, not a chance. So, we record these.
And I reject your calling them pedophiles. That is derogatory. They do not like that. That's that name.
Oh, that's right.
That's insulting. They are child attracted adults.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. CAAs. Yes, as I recall. The
ironically,
the House voted 219 to 203. No Democrats voting for this.
Sure.
To ban transgender student athletes from competing in girls and women's sports at K through 12 schools, universities, and colleges that receive federal funding. The bill now heads to the Senate. It's good to get everybody on record on this. This is a great cultural issue. Now, I'm wondering when it goes to the Senate. The Democrats have the advantage, but Feinstein isn't there anymore, and Fetterman. If you saw him, I think it was yesterday.
Oh man,
did you see him?
My God, that's pathetic.
Horrible.
It was like watching a first grade student struggle reading Dick and Jane.
Yeah, so you can imagine when he wants to vote nay, it's going to come out like no. So yeah, this thing could pass the Senate as well, but then Biden would probably veto it, I guess. But it's a great cultural issue. You
need 60.
Yeah. So
can they defund the House can defund Title IX though? I mean that's they have a lot of power with the budget. They could say that no funding will go to any schools that allow males to compete as females. I mean, they could theoretically do that and shut down the government.
Yeah, we're showing Fetterman right now. And I got to say, he ties his tie rather well. I mean, I can't. My knot is always askew.
You're assuming.
So
you are
assuming that he tied the tie himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. Well, speaking of cultural issues, so we have that 6-week abortion bill that Ron DeSantis signed. And I was reading this article from a doctor who says, because it's the heartbeat bill. And it really gets into semantics, but this doctor says what defines a heart is not its form, but its function, which is to pump blood to the rest of the body. And that's what that heart is doing from very early on, even at about 3 weeks post-fertilization, when you're already getting a heartbeat. It's made out of cardiac tissue, and it's serving the same purpose that serves in you and I, which again is to circulate blood to the rest of the body. It's really a false separation to try to separate an electrical impulse and a heartbeat, because the heartbeat is caused by the electrical impulse. So, I mean, and I agree with all this and everything like that, but politically, I don't see this DeSantis, and he's down in the polls. I don't see this as helping him at all if he wants to challenge Trump for.
Well, I think I mentioned that. I think I mentioned that last week. I think his support for this indicates that he's given it up. That he's gonna continue the pretenses of it, but I mean he's losing. All the donors are losing interest in him. I think he's and it's and really Florida voters. They're all postmenopausal, so they don't really care about the abortion bill anymore. Yeah. They can live it up at the senior village. Right.
And then there's this fight he's having with Disney World, and he may have jokingly said this. He wanted to put a prison next to Disney World, and I was thinking, the Baltimore Ravens, I think, won the Super Bowl in, I think it was 2000. I'm not sure. And at that time, Ray Lewis, their star player, was, he was accused of being part of a murder. And it would have been funny had once they won the Super Bowl, if Ray Lewis had been able to say, "I'm going to Disney prison." But we're not going to have that.
That would actually be an interesting prison contracted out to Disney, a private prison.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
To make them all wear mouse ears. And
to me, it's a cruel and unusual punishment to have to go on the Small World ride over and over again, which I have done. Oh my God. I mean, I'd rather go into solitary than see that. But so let's turn to Justice Thomas just for a second. Last week I was reading, I read a tweet by Keith Olbermann that said Justice Thomas has to be resigned right now. And when Keith Olbermann speaks,
sure,
well, fewer and fewer people listen, but and everybody was talking about, this is the thing that's going to cook him and blah, blah, blah. And then there's this James Taranto piece in the Wall Street Journal, and I dare anybody to read it. Okay. I mean,
I did. I was actually watching it during the break. I was reading it during the break because I knew we were going to talk about
Okay.
this.
How far did you get into it?
Whole thing. I read the whole thing.
What
3
are
times.
you like? Are you a speed reader? Did you take Evelyn Wood? I mean, that thing must be 3,000 words.
Yeah, it's confusing. It's this house, that house, this line, that line.
No, it's unbelievable. And me, I'm very superficial, and if I could read a tweet thread, but here's the thread of it.
Second paragraph, you start hearing Charlie Brown's parents.
Oh yeah. No, but the thing was, but the thing is that Taranto does a great job, and he basically, the whole story was based on ProPublica's investigative reporting, and he takes ProPublica to task, saying they weren't very curious about things. They could have bought Thomas's biography for $13.99 right now, and seen the history of all these houses. And it seemed to me the whole turn on basically that he filled out one form that everybody fills out, but he didn't fill out another form, so he's got to amend another form. That's not deceit or fraud or I mean, what are we talking about?
And that's assuming that he profited from the sale. He shared that estate with two other step siblings. They didn't he didn't get into about who so he only was entitled to a third anyway if it was split evenly. But then he says from his book, he said that as soon as his aunt died, that the heirs just started fighting all over the things, and he said the only thing that mattered to me in that house was already gone. And so it's very likely that when the sale happened, he said, take it, I don't want a dime. In which case he wouldn't have to file, right?
The great thing about it though is just the heft of the Taranto piece, because I got into, and thank goodness that you're able to read. I'm Fetterman with Dick and Jane, so.
The other curious thing is that they accused him of not disclosing the property after he stopped renting it. But the thing is, it was never rented. His mom lives there. It was never a rental property. The rental property that they confused for the one he sold was 45 minutes away. It's a completely separate house.
Like I say, blah, blah, blah. Thanks very much for all the details. All I know is when I got about, through the sludge of about the 8th paragraph of that, and I said, I'm not going to read anymore. It's fine. It's already more than reasonable doubt. I'm not going to convict Clarence Thomas on this. Now, they do. I still think they're trying to hang their hat on other things that he's done. Dick Durbin, Sack of Durbin, as I like to call him, wants to call the justices up in May while they're, trying to deliberate on cases to testify about ethics. Is there anything else they got him on? I mean, everybody takes these vacations.
He won't. Well, first of all, Harlan Crow has no interest in front of the Supreme Court. There's no cases that Harlan Crow has an interest in.
Right.
An interest, I believe, counselor, is a legal term that means a financial stake. Correct?
Yeah. I'll buy that.
It doesn't mean, hey, we agree on abortion. That's not an interest. You think Justice Kagan ever goes out with some left-wing friends and talks about how they miss Roe already?
You know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to assign Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, to indict Clarence Thomas, and we'll see how that works. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Personally, no, I wasn't surprised.
Why not?
The fact is that they published falsehoods about us, and It wasn't just once or twice. It wasn't just on one day or 2 days. It was 20 statements made over 2.5 months. And this was not the case of a media company pursuing the truth and making a mistake. They knew.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly, wrap. Little syncopated there. Well, it's time for a new segment.
Oh,
and this is the big debate. It's RINO versus MAGA. I'm RINO, Tim's MAGA. And this segment is about what our producer, Chris, labeled the Fox News BS settlement. So, as far as I'm concerned.
So Chris is on my side, I think.
Yeah, you guys can tag team. You could be Mitsu Arakawa and Dr. Moda. I'll take you on. I'll just be Dick the Bruiser. I won't even have his cousin, the Crusher, with him. But anyway, let's debate this. And I don't even think there's anything to debate. But why don't you go ahead, Tim? And
it's obviously a BS settlement. They picked a Delaware court. How the heck is Fox News going to get a fair jury in a Delaware court? Not to mention, they've been leaking the Dominion has been leaking their discovery for the past 3 months. I mean, everybody in Delaware thinks, Fox News. Well, they always thought Fox News was a liar, but now they think they're caught. And there's no way that they weren't going to get that $1.17 billion a settlement they originally wanted. So, I mean, Fox got off cheap.
Tim, you insolent slut. Pardon my James Jackson Kilpatrick. So, before we get into the debate, I really wanted to see Brett Baer. Because I watched, after the settlement, and I watched special report, and Brett Baer wasn't on that night. I wonder if that's a coincidence. But I wanted to see him on there announcing the verdict against his company. They didn't even mention it until like Howie Kurtz did something at some point deep into the show, which I didn't even see. But one of my favorite Walter Jacobson moments, everybody talks about Walter Jacobson when he was homeless and they were videoing him, and he said, "I'm really, really miserable." And of course, it reminds you of Sam Kinison saying, "Why don't you just give him a sandwich?"
Yeah, dressed up as Walter Jacobson, dressed up like every kid who couldn't find a costume and his mom made him a hobo.
Right, but that's not my favorite.
Got the little stick with the bandana tied on the back.
Certainly, yeah. And he's doing like a Red Skelton routine, and it's just wonderful. But it's not my favorite Walter Jacobson segment. My favorite is on the 5 o'clock news one weekday. He's on there and he's announcing his own guilty verdict in a libel case. He was sued by the Brown and Williamson Tobacco Company. Imagine losing a lawsuit, a libel case to a tobacco company. How could
Different times.
No, this was in the 80s. I mean, everybody agreed that cigarettes cause cancer, but somehow he lost one because he said that they were marketing to kids, and apparently they showed that he was guilty of libel. So, but I mean, that was amazing to me. So, anyway, as I'm getting a note from Chris here, keep it national. Oh, okay. Yep. All right. Well, yeah. I thought, doesn't everybody know Walter Jacobson's son actually was on the TV show House. So there we go. There's your tenuous connection to national stuff. All right. So here's the thing. That I don't think the fact that it was in Delaware really is dispositive of the issue. The key to it, I mean, they got basically a half of what they were looking for, and it was a gamble, because this could have gone up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court might have said, "Sorry, nothing. You don't get anything, because we're going to protect freedom of speech, and this was newsworthy." What happened was the judge in Delaware, and maybe he's biased and maybe he was wrong, said that you couldn't use this newsworthy defense or say that it was just political opinion. The problem was they had like 19 instances where Lou Dobbs, and I think Lou Dobbs is the guy, and Maria Bartiromo to some extent, said things that were just untrue. And the real kicker, the real flavor to the whole thing was all the stuff that came out in the depositions positions where even the Fox News hosts and the big ones, Hannity and Graham and Carlson, didn't believe that the election was rigged and didn't even believe the stuff that they were putting out there, even to the point where Carlson wanted a Fox News reporter fired for telling the truth. It was so bad, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't have, snuck their way through on a libel case. So, it's not all that much. It's 20% of Fox's cash on hand, and it's 10 times the value of the Dominion company. So, it kind of works now.
Well, the Dominion company now.
No, they made quite a bit of money on this.
Well, here's a couple things. Okay, first of all, yeah, they said I can't believe some of the BS. Now, did they actually say I can't believe the BS that we're claiming on the air? Or did they say I can't believe some of the BS our guests are trying to say, which is a big difference.
No, but here's the thing: you can't necessarily escape it if you just have the guests say it. If you don't try to do anything, and here's Laura Ingraham.
Really, you have to take it. You have to take the side of the opponent.
No, you don't have to. And this is where it's a good question, because this is where it gets murky. I mean, how much this whole newsworthiness thing? I don't even think the Supreme Court has decided on that. I think that's some appellate circuit court made some decision on that. And so it's kind of murky what the duty is of the broadcaster. I mean, the best argument to make is, look, even the Democrats have been claiming that elections have been rigged and that voting machines have been rigged in past elections. You put these people out there, you put them on the air because it's newsworthy. But I think, and maybe that would win the day in the Supreme Court of the United States. Fox didn't want to go through the trial where the laundry comes out again.
I don't even think they wanted to really investigate it very deeply, because here's the thing. Couldn't they, through discovery, have demanded that Dominion hand over their software and their machines?
Well, here's the thing.
You're claiming
I thought your argument was going to be, I thought you were going to put your tinfoil hat on and say, well, truth is defense against libel. Well, this isn't the Star Chamber where the greater the truth, the greater the libel. We can prove that
I've got some tinfoil.
The election.
I've got some tinfoil hat stuff too, but this
right.
This is what I want to. Couldn't they do that? Couldn't they have said, we want the machines, we want to be able to inspect the machines, we want to be able to inspect the software?
Are you sure you could ask for it? But even they didn't believe any of this. Nobody believed it. Laura Ingraham said that Sidney Powell was a nutcase. This is in text messages.
Sure.
So did Tucker Carlson used effing bitch. Okay.
Well, here's the thing. Sidney Powell was saying some nuts stuff. So was Mike Lindell. They were both kind of saying some nutsy stuff. And here's the tinfoil hat coming. Get the tinfoil, everybody. I believe that they had a plant in the Trump campaign that was that claimed to be an intelligence expert that was feeding them the nutsy stuff. And he was doing it so credibly that they were going on the air repeating the nutsy stuff, not realizing that they were nuts.
That's not so tinfoilish, Tim.
Okay.
Foil.
Okay.
Tim, my foil. Speaking of Mike Lindell, so he apparently made an offer ahead of a cyber symposium in August of 21 in South Dakota. He claimed he had data showing Chinese interference and said he would pay $5 million to anyone who could prove the material was not from the previous year's U.S. election. And he called the challenge "Prove Mike wrong." And the other day, a private arbitration panel ruled that someone had proved him wrong. Robert Zeidman, a computer forensics expert and 63-year-old Trump voter from Nevada, was entitled to a $5 million payout from poor Mike Lindell. And Lindell says he's going to fight it in court, but arbitration rulings are binding, and he had agreed to that. So I mean,
and you know what else, Bruce? You know what else? Those pillows don't stay cool.
Yeah, that's true.
That was my biggest disappointment with Mike Lindell. I don't care what he thought he had and he never had. And I mean, that's why Cindy Powell kept saying the Kraken's coming, the Kraken's coming. She was being teased by somebody, obviously, who said,
maybe so. Although there's still people, I mean, like Tom Fitton, you ever see him from Judicial Watch? He is, man, is that guy cut? I mean, for a geek, I mean, he is really cut. He's physically fitting that Tom Fitton. But he said it was a shakedown by Dominion, and this election was rigged 6 ways to Sunday. Well, Tom, I'd amend that to 5 ways to Sunday, because you don't have the Dominion voting machines. You just don't have that.
And speaking of Sunday, Dan Bongino's no longer there.
Oh, yeah. He's now. You think that's a result of they don't have any money to pay anybody anymore?
Well, I think probably what he was asking, they're saying, we got to tighten the belt. I think if they would have won the suit, they might have renewed his contract with the price he was
so
naming.
He's the first. There's Tom Fitton. I'm telling you. And look at those sternocleidomastoid muscles. Yeah. I can't even pronounce them right. But
he is a fit one.
No, he is. Bongino, also fit, is going. I'm wondering, this Susan Scott, who was brought in to clean up the O'Reilly mess. Ironically, I mean, O'Reilly is now, criticizing his former home, saying, he never would have fallen for all this stuff. He might have saved the day for them.
That's right.
And you're wondering if they're going to get rid of this Susan Scott. I mean, that's getting a little too inside baseball because nobody knows who she is. But and of course, you had guys like Jake Tapper, who was actually laughing when he was reading Fox's statement after this. Meanwhile, CNN, of course, had to pay money to Nicholas Sandmann. So,
that was $150 million suit, and whatever the CNN had to pay was not disclosed. It was part of the NDA that CNN.
And CNN doesn't have the cash on hand that Fox does. That's for sure. All right. So judges, I win this debate. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
No one should have to endure the discomfort, embarrassment, and discrimination that often comes with being a plus-size passenger trying to navigate air travel. By signing this petition, you can help us demand that airlines take concrete steps to make air travel more inclusive and accommodating for all passengers. Whether you're plus-size or not, everybody deserves to be treated with dignity and respect when they fly. Let's work together to make sure that the travel industry serves everyone, not just a select few.
Well, Jaylene Cheney made global headlines this weekend after claiming fat people are entitled to extra seats on planes because they're so fat.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. And
where does this notion come from that one individual pays for one ticket? I'm with Piers on this. You mail something. They don't say, how many objects do you have? We have to charge by the object. That's really bad because I'm sending a box of candy. It's weight times distance. That's pretty much the way it is when you're at the post office. Why shouldn't it be that on the plane?
Well, because people have an inalienable right to be whatever weight they want, and it's fat shaming. Here's the thing.
Well, it's weight, distance, and size too. They pull out at least at UPS, they take out the tape measure.
You're
gonna need 2 yards of seat, honey.
Here's the thing. I mean, if I would agree to give her the extra seat for free, if I saw an affidavit from a physical trainer that she has been working out lately and has cut down on the calories. Here's the problem. Okay, let's say you're born with this. It's largely genetic and you can't do anything about it. But she may have been born with a very high intellect. Well, why doesn't she's got certain advantages because of that? And what about the people who don't have the advantage of a great intellect? So don't they have certain rights too? Because basically it's all an argument.
Stupid people.
It all comes down
what
to
accommodation should we make for stupid people?
Right. Well, because when it all comes down to, where they're always going with this socialism. That's what's happening in the Chicago schools, and the Chicago with the Chicago Police Department, the whole city. Socialism is the answer. If the question is, how do we make everyone equally unhappy? And that's and even at that, of course, what happens is that there's always graft, there's always corruption. Sure. So nobody's ever
economics always finds a way. It's
right.
You can cut to the front of the bread line if you want to pay more.
Right. There's always corruption. And speaking of food,
and I think I think that's kind of mean, saying that she's if she works out that maybe you'll give her the benefit of the second seat. I'm on the other side. It's I think her weight should be encouraged, because she's not going to be collecting Social Security.
Okay, Ebenezer Scrooge, let's decrease that surplus population right now.
Have we no workhouses?
All I know is this obviously is making me hungry. And did you see where McDonald's is going to make improvements? How can you improve on the Big Mac? But they are going to do that.
Well, the Big Mac now is not the Big Mac I remember.
Well, you're bigger than you were when you first ate them in 1970.
Not
this
a lot.
is really big. You know how much the Big Mac cost when you first got one, like 53 years ago or something?
$1? Was it $1?
It's less than that.
Really?
It was about 70 cents. Now, of course, with inflation.
Look at that picture. That's not what Big Macs look like now. They look more like White Castle now. They're tiny and high. No, they had for a while there. They had 3 Big Mac options at McDonald's, because I'm a Big Mac fan. I've been a Big Mac fan for a very long time. And they had the Mini Mac, which was like a double cheeseburger with lettuce and special sauce, essentially. And then they had the classic Big Mac, and then they had I don't know what they called it, the Maxi Mac, or it was a giant Big Mac. It was like 2 quarter-pounders. And let me tell you, that was how I remember.
It's just like
that was how I remember the Big Mac.
When we do the post-mortem on this show, which story was Tim's favorite? Was it Justice Thomas to the nth degree on every little real estate transaction? Or I thought this was like a throwaway, the Big Mac.
Are you kidding? The longer I talk about Big Macs, the less we have to talk about sports.
First of all, Jane, you insolent slut. Again, there's only one Big Mac. The other things you're describing are quarter pounders or double quarter pounders. Maybe
but that's what the Big Mac was like. That was like that's how I remember the Big Mac. It had a softer bun, and the cheese sticks straight out when you get a Big Mac. It's like cold cheese. It doesn't.
Okay. All right.
You fold down around the burger. It was there you go. See, look at that. That's the Big Mac on the right is the Big Mac I remember from my childhood.
This is almost like Big Mac porn right now. The cheese is dripping down. I mean, I think I'd rather show, a drag show right now than these burgers. But what they're going to do, here's the improvement. They're putting caramelized onions on the Big, and I got to say, the onions were always tolerable to me, but I like caramelized. That's a good idea. No,
that is a good idea.
Agree?
No, I like caramelized onions too. But
okay.
I was kind of fond of the McDonald's the McDonald's dehydrated, reconstituted onions. It's it always had a special flavor.
Now they're also going to make the buns pillowy. And as soon as I think of that, I think Mike Lindell's got to get in on this, right? Here's your go anywhere Big Macs.
I don't want it cold on top.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all right. Let's now that we've been sated.
And speaking, I want to go back to, we were talking about a fat before.
Sure.
Do you know who Lizzo is?
Yeah.
It's I mean, she is kind of like the spokesperson.
That's not a picture of Lizzo right now. That is
it's
the Big Mac.
It's the Grand Mac. That's what it is. The Grand Mac.
Okay.
That's what they call it in France, I guess.
Yeah, Le Grand. I think you're thinking of too much Pulp Fiction. The Big Mac. Yeah, Lizzo.
Do you think that means she's the ambassador for the body positive? But do you think when she goes out to eat, she orders just a salad? I'll bet she does. Oh, and then goes home and devours a bag of chips and 2 Big Macs crying.
Someday she's going to be the spokesperson for Weight Watchers. She will.
And back to the Big Mac. It's actually there you go. The Big Mac is not as unhealthy as you would think.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Is that you could actually eat 2 Big Macs a day. Get your daily protein requirement. Your sodium's going to be a little high. Your fat RDA fat is all right, and 1,200 calories. Yeah. So
the problem is that it's like Jay's potato chips. You just can't eat just one. I mean, if you eat 2 Big Macs, you're gonna adapt to that, and pretty soon you're gonna be eating a lot more. You can't just. But it's. I mean, that's why. You notice the only people who eat healthy are rich people. Poor people get more bang for their buck by eating, these.
Well, that's because they won't build a Whole Foods on the South Side.
Right. So let's turn over to TV right now. Ted Lasso, I watched that. I like that. Perry Mason, I'm liking that. I like wonderful. But they always have to have the obligatory gay rights thing. It's sure. And Ted Lasso, you have these 2 women, and you just know that they're going to start making out with each other. It's got to happen.
You got a problem with that?
None whatsoever. Perry Mason, they have a gratuitous display of the gay women's breasts, and I knew I'd pique your interest. In their Big Macs. So,
Tim Allen said that once. He said, guys can make anything plural, and it's a euphemism for breasts.
I just demonstrated that. All right. Yeah. Here's what I want to ask you. My best friend, he watches Succession, and so do I. And, he was talking about it. And so I mentioned, Logan Roy, and spoiler alert here. Yeah. Logan Roy, died, the big guy, the Rupert Murdoch character. And he said, I haven't gotten to that yet. So I actually spoiled that for him. Oh, man. And that's a big deal. But I thought he was with, it wasn't intentional.
Yeah. I always ask when I start talking about a series, I always ask where they're at, how far in.
No, you're right. And that was horrible. The worst spoiler I ever got, my wife and I, this is when we just started dating, and her little brother, we're watching Planet of the Apes on TV. He walks in, he's like 11 years old. He goes, "Oh, have you seen the Statue of Liberty yet?" I mean, it was just like, that was the end. That was the end. Now, what's your worst spoiler experience?
Speaking of Charlton Heston, and I think we were, anybody who went to see the new movie knew Soylent Green was people. I mean, that was supposed to be the big reveal at the end of the movie. But everybody knew Soylent Green was people when the movie started. So I don't think anyone did not have that movie spoiled.
Did you ever spoil anything? Have you had something spoiled for you?
I've always been anti-spoiler, so I'm pretty strict on it. But I remember the first time a spoiler was highlighted for me was a Peanuts cartoon, and this was before the word spoiler even existed.
Sure, yeah.
I think Linus was watching television, and Lucy comes in and goes, "What are you watching?" He goes, "Citizen Kane. It's pretty good." He goes, "Oh." She goes, "Oh, okay." And as she's walking out, she goes, "Rosebud was the sled." And it's it kind of Rosebud was the sled. Yeah. Tends to be. It's like jumping the shark. It's like
That's really, I thought you were going to tell me, spoiler alert, she swipes the football away from Charlie Brown, but no, that makes sense to me. And we all know that Rosebud was something else, but that's another story. Maybe Tim Allen can tell it to us one of these days. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production.